This is a podcast by the News Minute, and you are listening to South Central.
Hello and welcome to South Central, a TNM podcast where we put South at the center. I'm Dhanya Rajendran, your host, and we're recording on the 24th of December at 3 p.m. In this week's episode, we'll discuss the Allu Arjun controversy and how the first week phenomenon has shaped the entertainment industry. And then we'll look into the topic of public spaces and people. Why in cities like Bengaluru does the administration have problems with people accessing spaces like Cubbon Park? Joining me in the studio is my co-host Pooja Prasanna, the reporting head of the News Minute.
Hi Dhanya, it's our last podcast for the year 2024. It's been such a fun ride.
No,
yes.
31st? Oh, January 1st is the next Wednesday. Yes. So the last podcast of the year. Also joining us in the studio is Vinay Srinivasa. He's a lawyer. He works for Street Vendors Union. He's an activist. Vinay, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Dhanya. Thank you for having me.
If there is a protest in Bangalore, you will see Vinay there.
In fact, we dragged Vinay out of a protest to come sit in the studio. Sorry that we took away that opportunity from you, Vinay. Joining us from Pune is people who read the News Minute know her very well. Sowmya Rajendran, film reviewer, writer, author. No need to call you activist, right, Sowmya?
No, definitely not activist. And now teacher, don't forget that.
Yes, now teacher. So when the News Minute started, she was one of those writers who gave this organization itself a character, I would say. So good to have you on the discussion, Sowmya. And joining us from Hyderabad is Rajeshwari Kalyanam. She's a journalist and a writer. Rajeshwari, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, it's so much pleasure to be here. And Sowmya, I keep reading what you write. So it's amazing to be with you guys.
And to everyone watching, Sowmya is this reviewer who can be brutal about movies. And for a long time, people used to think, not long time, actually, even now, a lot of people think that we are sisters. Dhanya Rajendran and Sowmya Rajendran. We are not.
What?
In fact, my Twitter bio used to say, not Sowmya's sister. For a long time, there was this particular, I don't know if Sowmya remembers, there was this, we wrote about some show. And that producer came on this Pudhiya Thalamure debate and he kept screaming, saying that in the Rajendran sisters, avanga oru racket nadathuranga. These Rajendran sisters are running a racket where one sister will write a bad review and the other sister will ask producers for money, it seems. So that's when we realized that people are taking this very seriously, that we're sisters. Yeah. So not my sister. Anyway, before we go into the podcast, a few things. One is that do read a story by my colleagues Azifa Fatima and Shivani Kawa on the male suicides in India, what the numbers actually tell us. And as Pooja said, this is the last podcast of the year and the best time to remind you that you have to become a subscriber of the News Minute. Remember, independent journalism is one of the last few things which really stands between us and a world where powerful people have taken over the media. 2024 here at the News Minute for us, it meant collaborations. We collaborated with Newslaundry, with Wire, Scroll, Caravan, Varta Bharati in Kannada, and many other organizations to bring you election coverage, to bring you stories and investigations. We hope 2025 will be better for us and support us by becoming a subscriber. So quickly, we'll go to the headlines, Pooja.
Yep. Starting with Karnataka, Lakshmi Hebbalkar to complain to President Murmu, Prime Minister Modi against BJP MLC C.T. Ravi. For those who have not followed this episode, Lakshmi Hebbalkar, who is a minister in the Siddaramaiah government, she's alleged that C.T. Ravi used a very obscene, objectionable term in a heated exchange in assembly. And there is a complaint that has been filed. He's out on bail. He was arrested and he's currently out on bail.
Yeah, as far as that is concerned, this is not the first time C.T. Ravi has been accused of saying something which hurts the dignity of women. He earlier used the word Nitya Sumangali in a debate, and he repeatedly used it even though Uma Shri told him not to use it as it hurts the dignity of women. So I feel that I don't know if the council and the assembly have an internal committee as per the POSH Act, but if they don't, they should constitute one and a complaint should go before that. In fact, the Congress party should have an IC where Ms. Lakshmi Hebbalkar should be able to complain, because it's in the course of her work that she has been harassed.
And it's astounding if he did use that word in the council,
Apparently,
right?
repeatedly he's used it. Incidentally, when we made calls to some BJP people also for our Power Trip is our weekly newsletter, political newsletter, and where we bring you scoop from, what's happening in the power corridor. So if you are a member, if you're a subscriber, you get access to that every Tuesday. But going back to what I was saying, even BJP is not denying that he said it. Now they just want the entire thing to de-escalate. Why? You'll know in this week's Power Trip. But to your point, Vinay, it is currently in front of the Legislative Council chairman because there's no IC.
He has actually said the matter is closed. He has investigated and this was not said and the matter is closed. He said if there's any further complaint, I will look into it, or if there's any further evidence, I will look into it. But since she has said, I think it has to be investigated. But one point which must be said also is that the way the arrest was done was also in violation of procedure. There was, under the Supreme Court's judgment in Arnesh Kumar, if there's offense which has less than 7-year punishment, you should give a notice before arresting. So that is also wrong. But C.T. Ravi, definitely, I think there should be an IC and there should be a training for MLAs of Karnataka about respecting women and how to maintain the dignity of women in the workplace, about sexual harassment.
Half the time they're getting injunctions against their sex tapes. So IC would be very, very good. Yeah.
Andhra government approves 2,723 crores for road infrastructure work in Amravati. The announcement was made by the Municipal Minister P. Narayana. VHP members tried to disrupt Christmas celebration in Palakkad school and they've been arrested. This is Dhanya's hometown, so Dhanya, go for
in
it.
Palakkad. Apparently, there have been 2 instances. Harita Manav, our colleague in Kerala, spoke to the VHP. They were like, we are not against any celebration. The kids were walking outside in the sun and we asked, why are they there? And it was a Christmas celebration. And that fight escalated. But what I couldn't understand is there are apparently been 3 different skirmishes in different parts of Kerala. On one side, the BJP and the Prime Minister are wooing Christians. On the other side, the VHP and RSS are saying don't have Christmas celebration. So please coordinate people.
No, I'll tell you what. Once a year, if you go and sit with the community, it takes time to trickle down, no? So old habits are hard to change. Hindu Makkal Kachi demands UAPA against Vidudalai Part 2 and its makers because apparently it has honored Naxalism.
I mean, I really liked Vidudalai Part 1, though towards the end it became too gory and violent for my taste. I am planning to watch Vidudalai Part 2 soon, but I haven't gotten around to doing that yet.
Hyderabad Police Commissioner apologizes for saying national media is bought over.
I mean, I really laughed at this. The man actually did say that you are all bought over, and a lot of comments on social media, he was saying the truth, right? But in this case, he meant that Allu Arjun and his family had bought over the national media because their narrative was Congress has committed a big blunder by arresting Allu Arjun.
Fake news has the power to disrupt social fabric of society with the help of new technology. Amit Shah is saying this.
Yeah.
I'm going to let the irony speak for itself. Also, for those who are not aware, the French media house Mediapart recently accused BJP and the BJP government of spreading fake news. So there it is. Only one bill passed during Parliament's winter session. During this period, the Lok Sabha functioned for 52% of its scheduled time and Rajya Sabha for 39%. This is a PRS report.
Okay, so that's it with the headlines. We'll go to the discussions now. The first discussion is about Allu Arjun and what has happened in Hyderabad. But before I get into that, I want to just give a quick summary of what happened in the last episode of South Central. It became a very controversial episode because 5 women were talking about a man's suicide and how suicide is looked at, domestic violence is looked at, etc. But the point I want to just touch upon is that there is a clip in that which has gone viral where I have said that, where Pooja and me were talking about copycat suicide. And I said that there is always a possibility of a copycat suicide, right? So a lot of people think that I made up this term or that it was a joke. People are like, really? What is copycat suicide? It's actually a term used by professionals, copycat suicide. For those unaware, please go Google Werther effect. The Suicide of Young Werther was a book by Goethe, and then it was written in the 1770s. It's about a young person who dies by suicide. So this name Werther was used by a journalist, Phillips, when he wrote an article in 1974, just 200 years later, about how when the media covers a suicide and sensationalizes it, more people die the same way, which is why it's called a copycat suicide or the Werther effect. I did not make it up. And my comment was not on the person, it's on the media. We were talking about the media coverage of the suicide and how that can actually induce more people to die by suicide. That there was a previous suicide like this where a person had shot a video, which is why I used that word. I did not make up that word. It's very much there. So after that small note on copycat suicides, let's jump into our first topic, which is Allu Arjun and the controversy around him. On December 4th, as his movie Pushpa 2 released, there was a premiere in a theatre called Sandhya in Hyderabad. A huge crowd gathered, and unfortunately, a woman named Revati died during the stampede. Her son is still critical. He has suffered brain damage and is in the hospital. Allu Arjun was arrested and the police charged him for culpable homicide. The controversy is whether Allu Arjun reached the theatre without having police permission and whether he stayed back despite knowing that a stampede had happened outside the theatre. Allu Arjun, Revanth Reddy, the Chief Minister of Telangana, and the Hyderabad police have been going back and forth over it. In this discussion, we'll also look at this whole phenomenon of the first week and how that has sort of made the entertainment industry behave in a certain way. But first, I want to ask Vinay whether charging Allu Arjun with culpable homicide is a bit of a stretch.
I've not seen the FIR in this case, but going by what the police is saying, that they specifically warned him about something like this will happen. And in spite of their warnings, he did that and he continued to stay there. So in that sense, his actions have a direct bearing on what has happened. But legally speaking, without seeing the FIR and like what is written, it's difficult to say. But I mean, one thing just commonsensically is that it was like really irresponsible to do something like this. And especially if like what the police are saying is true, that they've warned and they specifically asked him not to be there, but to stay on there, right? And the fact that, I mean, the way the whole thing has played out, that I don't know who's even visited the woman and the child's family, but like all the actors are making a beeline to Allu Arjun's house. It's really sickening to see, and it's like really disappointing that somebody who has led to the death of somebody else is getting so much sympathy, but the family who's lost a person and like, you know, whose child is in danger is not getting anything. But yeah, we must see the FIR to be able to say more.
Rajeshwari, you are of course living in Hyderabad. What I felt is that initially there was a lot of sympathy for Allu Arjun, but that slowly died down after the whole spectacle once he came out on bail, right?
Yes, Dhanya. Basically, the initial sympathy was because, of course, of the fans, and usually you are sympathetic towards the heroes. I mean, they are demigods after all. But that I think by his own actions, Allu Arjun has kind of nullified it. Eventually, with each public appearance, he's only making it worse. In fact, by not responding to it even on Twitter the next day, and then responding to it a day after, and sounding very he was not sounding empathetic. He was only trying to kind of keep himself away from the incident. And then the recent press conference where he actually said a few things which did not match with the videos. After all, there is video evidence of Allu Arjun sitting and watching the movie till the last important scene that he wanted to watch. So, and then he's saying that he immediately went out after knowing about the tussle. He also denied knowing anything about the death of the woman, which is also kind of very strange, because a lot of my friends who were watching the movie in the theater, the reviewers were there, and they already started getting WhatsApp messages about the death and about this problem outside the theater. And he being the actor who was in the film, he not knowing about it till the next day is something nobody can kind of fathom how it's possible. Obviously, it's not right. So yeah, he's only making it worse, and the sympathy is actually becoming less and less.
Yeah, in fact, first when he was arrested, everybody was saying, why is the arrest happening? Even the judge said, right, that you can't actually prove that the death happened because of him, that he's not directly responsible for it. But the moment he came out, the number of celebrities outside his house was ridiculous. Sowmya, there's a saying in Malayalam, no? Swayam kuricha kuril vira, which is you dig your own hole. Yeah. So I almost felt like Allu Arjun was doing that. And everything progressively which happened after that, right? Where they sort of challenged Revanth Reddy and he responded to the challenge like crazy in the assembly.
Yeah, whoever is advising him is not doing a very good job, I should say. I think the narrative is becoming progressively worse for him, as Rajeshwari rightly pointed out. Especially since the police, after they released the video evidence, then I think the public wave of sympathy that was there towards him is slowly shifting.
No, but also the problem is that there were lots of things which he said in that press meet, right, Rajeshwari, which are problematic. One, he said that I walked out of the movie after a few minutes, but the visual clearly shows that he was there from 9:30 to 11:30, almost 2 hours into the movie. and then the cops can be seen going up and down. So, I mean, I don't understand why would he say things which he knows can be proven otherwise. Like, obviously, it will be proven that Allu Arjun was not there just for a few minutes, right? Why would he even say such things?
Yes, in fact, it is ridiculous. As Sowmya just said, somebody is advising him wrong, or he's just thinking. I mean, like people think that because right now the movie is at 1,400 odd crores across India in terms of collection, he must be also somewhere feeling a little immune to any consequences, is what I feel. Maybe somewhere, in the heart of heart, he must be thinking he's immune, which is wrong basically. Why can't he do it within his house? He in fact had the entire thing happening in the lawns. He was meeting everybody in the lawns. There were cameras. The PR team actually shared a live feed of the people coming and meeting him through the day. Was it a show of power is something again people kind of speculated, because he could have met them inside the house. It was not very empathetic. It was not very humble of him. I mean, there's no humbleness around the whole thing, despite this unfortunate event happening. That is something which everything that he has done he has only done something very wrong and very detrimental to his own image. So I think that is where it is only becoming bad. Even the response that he has given to Revanth Reddy's comment in the assembly, he could have tweeted about it, or he could have met the CM. I mean, why should he have a press conference? I mean, what Revanth Reddy has said in the assembly, he had to say. And again, coming back again in front of the press and again talking things that everyone knows is not what has happened. I think I don't know, as Sowmya said, somebody is really giving him bad advice. And I would think Allu Arjun, his father, he is such a senior in the industry. I would think he would have acted better, but sadly, no.
No, I think people just assume nothing will happen to them, right? And it hasn't in the past. But there has been too much evidence put out. He's being almost combative, and Revanth Reddy has risen to the challenge. And I feel for once, this has been the theme of Revanth's chief ministership. He went after all the big names in that Hydra episode. Nagarjuna's convention center was demolished, and also big builders were against him. So it's almost like this brand he's trying to build for himself, that he doesn't care how big or how powerful the person is, he will go after them. So, the fact that Allu Arjun is not appearing apologetic at all and is just coming up with excuses for how it was not his fault, that is secondary. Yes, legally that's important. Get your lawyers to put that across. But as far as the perception is concerned, the first thing you should do is appear apologetic, whether it was my fault or not. The fact that this happened, they'd come to watch my movie, and that is terrible. That should be his only line that he should take. And the fact that he had a procession, which was not allowed, from the metro station to the theatre, which is what the police is saying. And even after he got there, he refused to leave. Like we were discussing earlier, the cops apparently were blocked by his manager from meeting him and telling him that, the situation is getting out of control, so leave the theatre. All of this is going to make matters worse for him. For me, the silver lining is, I hope it also sends a message to other heroes that this madness, right? And Sowmya, I think, can comment on this first week madness and anything to get that box office collection. That should probably come down with this episode.
I felt the reaction to this whole episode, right, especially in the last 2 or 3 days, would also have shown someone like Allu Arjun that they're no longer that immune. That there is a population which will see through this. They'll be criticized. Normally, it's one hero's fan club versus the other hero's fan club. But I think this time public opinion is also very polarized. Either it's for him or against him. But against him would never would have happened in the past, I think. But this time it also shows that these heroes also will be questioned, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you are right. I think the culture of hero worship is there, but it is cracking. So that's all. And I feel this is also in some way connected to the kind of first week hyping that happens in the industry, because they know that they can no longer take it for granted that the crowds will turn up, even if it is a big star. So they go all out to promote the film. Because now people have the option of staying at home, watching a film on OTT. And that kind of star power, which was there in the past, where you can just make a movie with a big star and stay at home and relax, I think that is slowly cracking. So in Tamil, for example, you have Vijay and Ajit, but after them, who's that next generation star who can just sell a movie just by their name. There is nobody in the industry like that anymore. So I think that is slowly cracking, and the industry needs to wake up to that.
What we don't understand perhaps is that bringing that audience that first week, right, the hype of the preview, the premiere. In fact, I think Allu Arjun's movie tickets were 900 to 1400 on the first day. How much of the luck of that movie really rides on the first week?
So the first 3 days are considered to be crucial, and after that there is the Monday test. So if the movie sinks on a Monday, that means it's not going to sustain itself. So what the producers and the films team are really hoping is that the audience comes to the theaters in the first 3 days, and then there is a strong word of mouth built around the film. So you will notice that all these requests that are also coming, right, for a film needs to be held back for the first 3 days. That they don't want social media influencers to tweet negatively about the film for the first 3 days. This is all because they are banking on the film to do well, on its own. If the first 3 days word of mouth is positive, so the challenge really for them is to get the audience there. And now with rising prices, ticket prices, popcorn prices, let's not talk about caramel popcorn right now, but
18%
the
GST.
yes, so the F&B prices, the parking prices, ticket prices, and so it's no longer it's not sure that the audience will definitely turn up for a film. So that desperation is there in the industry. Now also we see so many good movies as well, right? Once it comes on OTT, then there is a new audience for it. So people are like, oh, why did this movie fail in the theaters? That's because not enough people have gone to watch it. So the entire market around the film now is towards grabbing the audience for the first 3 days.
Hmm. And Rajesh, when we talk about Telugu movies as such, what is the kind of money riding? For example, I was talking to a producer in the morning. He told me that apparently there are a few movies now where the hero gets a revenue. Before it used to be profit share. Now there are contracts where the hero may even get a revenue share. Now this is not for the woman actor, the lead actor. It's only for the male lead actor mostly. So, bringing people to theaters is very important, right? In that first week, and especially Telugu, I think has a lot of big budget movies.
So basically, the first week, I feel it's also important because as I see the movies and as I go to see and review the movies, I see that even the best of the movies don't get openings. So today there are only two kinds of movies that are happening. One are big budget films which are releasing in hundreds of theaters at once, and now with the pan India craze, the number of theaters and the money at stake is also increasing. So you have these many theaters opening, the film is releasing, and the first 3 days, I feel personally that it is very important for collections to make some money because there's so much money that has been put into production. During COVID, I once spoke to one of the producers, and one of the best things that happened, in fact, Telugu industry made the most number of films during COVID in the entire world. So we were having the advantage that because there was a rule that we should not have so many people on the sets, the cost of production has actually come down drastically. So now the film, even if a small film, there is a minimum budget that has to be put because it is a very big issue about unions wanting set number of people on the sets. They don't want the number to go down. There are a lot of other issues. So even a small film puts in a lot of money when it comes to Telugu. So the first few days collection is very important, and most films are, you see empty theaters even on the next day.
Sowmya, you mentioned that, the culture where you cast a big hero and automatically your box office revenue is guaranteed isn't there anymore. But isn't that the exact problem? Isn't that why people do all sorts of stunts and, do this procession like this guy reportedly did to kind of push and bolster the first week, revenue?
Absolutely. I won't say the culture is gone entirely because, as I mentioned, we do have stars like Ajit, Vijay, who guarantee that kind of opening. But it is waning for sure. So it is definitely on the decline. So in every industry, you can see that producers are nervous about the film coming out, and they go all out to promote it. I remember in 2016, Kabali, the producer, Tanu, he went all out to promote the film, and we had Air Asia aircraft with Kabali the images from the
The
film
rap
on
of
it.
the
Yeah. And before that, we've had Pal Abhishekams and temples for actors being built in the state. So it is not anything new. But I would say that after the pandemic and after the OTT industry changed because of the pandemic. Because earlier it was mainly meant for alternative cinema or smaller films which would not get a release in theaters. So OTT platforms were for like Netflix were supposed to be an avenue for that. But with the pandemic, those platforms also changed the way that they were buying films. Then they also refused to buy movies which did not get a theatrical opening because they felt that the marketing onus would fall entirely upon them. So there are many factors that have come into play after the pandemic, and that is the reason that now producers are going all out, even more than they were, to get the audience into theaters. And also with the Bahubali films becoming a big hit, uh, now there is this craze for part one and part two. Producers no longer want to end a film. For example, Pushpa now has a part three, whereas ideally the part two itself should have ended 40 minutes earlier than what it did. The plot actually ends,
But
and then
Allu
they
Arjun,
just stretch it like
Allu
chewing
Arjun
gum, and
won't
I
be
was
going
like,
to the theater.
why? Yeah.
No, so Pushpa 3 is going to come. Is it announced?
Yes, of course.
Oh. I think we should also release stories now in
part
parts,
one,
part
part
1,
two,
part 2.
part
I,
three.
I I think people don't even have patience to read part 1. No, but Soumya, one thing, and I'll come to Rajeshwari also. Soumya, see, I think what we shouldn't also miss in this whole thing is the kind of power these Tollywood families have, right? And Tollywood especially is an industry which is sort of ruled by just 2-3 families and all intermarried. Um, we in fact have put out a story, so I think many years ago, with a big chart. Soumya has, I think, edited that story where all the families intermarrying. So they also think they're invincible in many ways. That is the reason why they're able to do all this, right? And even that whole charade outside his house where everybody's coming and hugging. Akhil Akineni says, "We are very proud of you, bro." What is it? We are very proud of you. Yeah, that clip is doing the rounds a lot.
He's a
Soumya?
martyr now for them.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but
Yeah, of course. So that is the power of the Telugu industry. I mean, because it is so family centered. So they really believe that they are invincible. And I'm often amused, as an entertainment journalist, when I used to read all these articles comparing Bollywood personalities with South Indian personalities. And then the comparison would always be that Bollywood people are too proud of themselves. South Indian celebrities are very simple, very humble. And I would always laugh to myself because this is, as you said, it's just a facade. It's not true. All of them have giant egos. They all deify, they expect to be deified, because they know that that's where their power of the audience comes from. So if Allu Arjun goes to a theater, he knew very well what would happen. He knew that there would be a tsunami of people. There would be people who have come there to idolize him. So it's nothing. They take that for that they think the audience owes that towards them. Yeah, so it is, and in the same breath, they also advise reviewers, watch a film as just a film and don't take it so seriously, without considering the hold that they have over the audience. Yeah.
Rajeshwari, in your time as a journalist in Hyderabad, have you ever seen this kind of an anger against a big actor for anything like this?
No, I have not actually. But here, you should also consider yet another angle to it. If you see the Twitter also, there is a perceived divide in the family, mega family as we call it, where Chiranjeevi and Allu Arvind or Allu Arjun are not together anymore is the perception, and the family is also giving all reasons for this perception to foster, because you don't see each one congratulating the other. You didn't see, like, for example, all the actors came to meet him, but Chiranjeevi's family, there was nobody from them who came down, who came to support him or who stood by him. So there is evidently a rift, and this rift, the fan clubs kind of own it, and they talk against each other. So for some of the backlash for Allu Arjun is also from the mega fans who think Allu Arjun, I mean, there is a lot of political reason to it. Allu Arjun went to campaign for a YSRCP candidate against Pawan Kalyan, because Pawan Kalyan was also contesting elections in Andhra Pradesh. It started then and it only became big, and you always had these mega fans trying to warn, saying they won't let the film open, they won't let the film happen. So even the fans feel very powerful, not just the actors. So in all this, it is like right now the backlash cannot be just attributed to general public, but it is also some of it is also from the other mega fans or the Chiranjeevi fans and family fans. Yeah.
So we'll do a pop quiz for Vinay. Vinay, do you know what the mega family is?
One is Nagar.
Did you say na? What is the mega family?
No, the Akineni family and this Chiranjeevi's family, correct? These are the two families.
So I just looked at the chart. Allu Arjun's sister is married to Chiranjeevi, and apparently there's been a fallout. So when Chiranjeevi came to Allu Arjun's house, there was a lot of talk as to good. And then I saw a lot of Pawan Kalyan fans saying that this did not happen in Andhra Pradesh, that the Andhra cops did not book Allu Arjun, because then they would have said that it's Pawan Kalyan who's making the Andhra cops go behind. So amongst all these gigantic egos, there is a fight also.
There is also one more thing I read, that Chiranjeevi's fans are upset because now apparently some movie of his or his son that is coming is not getting an early release date because of this entire drama. So they're also extra upset with Allu Arjun for that.
And he can't go to the theatre also.
He can't. My God.
Yeah. No, so I want to also ask one more thing, Sowmya, that, I remember you writing many stories about how there is reveal of the title of the movie. Then there is a reveal of the first song of the movie. Then there is a reveal of so in every way possible, there is a build up towards the movie, right? About the release of a movie. And it's then no wonder that Allu Arjun has to give it all, right? That's how the system itself has developed itself. Is there no way that the movie industry will change? Also because heroes charge a lot, right? A big budget of the movie is for the hero.
So earlier, film promotions were mainly happening through posters or advertisements in newspapers. But with online social media promotions, the whole game has changed. So the way they, build up to a film has completely changed. So it's not just the announcement of the title. Before that, they will tell you that at this time, we will announce the title. So that tweet will receive like 1 million retweets. And then, fan clubs will be promoting that. And then maybe they will release the first alphabet of the title. So all kinds of crazy things happen around this. So this kind of movie is built over a period of time. And of course, social media influencers have kind of taken over the job of what entertainment journalists used to do, so they put out all the news, they put out all the information. So now if you see, entertainment journalists have actually become, many of them, I would say, have actually taken on the mantle of social media influencer. So if you take the example of the Allu Arjun case, entertainment portals that are reporting on cinema news, very few of them take any kind of stance on it. They just say that, okay, this incident happened and that was called for questioning. Maximum, that's it. They will not put up anything more on the incident itself. It is only the other media which covers entertainment as part of its, repertoire. It's only they who actually cover the case, and that's because entertainment portals realize that if they have to do those interviews, if they need to do those roundtables, they need to pander to these stars, especially the male stars who control the industry. They charge these massive salaries. They are the ones who make or break a film. So every now and then there are producers who grumble and say that they should slash their rates. They should be reasonable about how much they are charging. But I don't see any move in that direction happening. In Bollywood, Akshay Kumar had to slash his rates because his movies were all flopping. But but that was the reason. It was not because he woke up one day and decided that I'm charging way too much and decided to cut down his salary. So in the South, that hasn't happened. So there is a salary, there is profit sharing, there is so much else that goes on. And obviously, they are the power centers of the industry.
Yeah. You want to add something, Vinay and Pooja, before I wrap up? I want to ask about tax benefits. Do you have an opinion about governments giving tax benefits? Because Revanth Reddy has now said he won't give tax benefits to movies.
I think tax benefit should be given only if there is a movie which is promoting a certain value which is there in our fundamental duties, like protect the environment, maintain communal harmony, that kind of thing. Now, I just wanted to respond to what you were saying earlier about why Allu Arjun is denying that he was there, etc. It's also probably because of his lawyer's advice. Because, like you're saying, if the FIR has culpable homicide, and one of the ingredients for culpable homicide is that he should have the knowledge that what he's doing might cause death or injury, right? So then if he says that, yeah, I knew, I was there, then later on during the trial, it will be like he accepted. Probably during the trial, he's going to say that I was not there or I didn't know, and
but now it's become a problem, right? Because there is footage of him exiting at 11:30.
That is footage, but for footage also there is rules during evidence, right? Who's collected that footage? What is the source of the footage? Whether we have a certification for where that source has come from, and are there going to be witnesses? Because of the immense power that they wield, maybe there might not be witnesses who will come and testify that yes, he was there, other than the police themselves.
Yeah, in fact, we had done a story, Vinay, on Raja Singh. Raja Singh had around 100 cases in Hyderabad for hate speech. One of the reasons why he's got convicted only in one case and not the rest is because when it came to footage, in many cases, the Hyderabad police won't give the footage in proper form, or they will not have the original footage and the original machine in which it was captured, or they won't have the proper signatures for it. And for that reason, that footage just gets discarded as evidence.
So that's why even though here the footage is there, we don't know how they've collected the footage, what device. You have to give a certificate to the court on which device you recorded, who recorded it, when you recorded, is that device still there, etc., etc. So which is why he's probably doing all this. It's like, see, none of these people do anything without thinking or without the advice, right? So if they're doing something, it's not just like that they're feeling like they have immunity, but it's probably that they've done something wrong and they're clear they want to escape. So their lawyers would have told them that whatever it is, be brazen and deny it.
On the issue of tax breaks, though, Vinay thinks that movies which have some larger message, social message, should be given tax breaks.
I'm not saying they should be. I'm saying
ideally.
No, I'm not even saying ideally.
Sabarmati Express got recently, right?
I'm just saying maybe it could be considered. I don't have a definitive opinion.
Problem
on
is
this.
That when you say social movies with a message, you mean something else. But the ones that
That's
have been
true.
getting,
That's correct.
right?
That's correct.
Kerala
That's
Story.
correct.
Kashmir Files,
Sabarmati.
All movies that Sowmya gave fantastic ratings for, right, Sowmya?
And praised and praised.
Kerala Story, Kashmir Files. Yeah.
I'm leading a peaceful life now, Dhanya. Leave me out of that. Don't remind people.
No, but Rajeshwari, you have another opinion about tax breaks, right? Because you were telling me that cinema is cheap entertainment and people should be allowed to buy tickets at cheap rates. Yeah.
Yes, actually, I feel that the cinema should be cheap entertainment, and that is one of the reasons when you go to theaters nowadays, there are standalone theaters are so less, and you have only malls where you spend so much money, which also I attribute to the number of occupancy, and the openings are bad because of that also. Especially when the movie will come on OTT and the entire family can watch it. Why would anybody want to go to the theater and spend like 3,000, 4,000 minimum? For a family and then go to a theater and watch a film? And that's why when these kind of films which are made with huge budgets are hyped up, so that the family, for example, coming back to the unfortunate family, because of the hype, the kids perhaps wanted to watch it and they watched the film and it ended up badly for them. So what I say is that why should you have so much cost attached to watching a film, which is the only cheap entertainment? I mean, you can tell me what else is there. I mean, especially in a place like Hyderabad, there's no park, there is nowhere to go. So, I mean, there's only a movie that people can go to with family and then forget the stress. At the end of the day, I know, I mean, there is good film, bad film, and what the film does to the people. But at the end of the day, that is a cheap entertainment, and we've always had that. I remember in childhood, we would go, buy a popcorn, buy tickets and watch a film for so much less. I mean, I don't remember somebody thinking twice to watch a film. So I think that somewhere we are forgetting that our country is more about middle class and lower middle class. It's not about the premium class.
So because Rajeshwari mentioned parks, which is exactly what our next topic is, I just want to sort of wrap this up saying it's become like a vicious circle where the movie itself is such a costly thing to make. Primarily because the hero charges this much. And then how do you make that money back? You do all these promotions and whatever. And a hero like Allu Arjun is also bound by strict contracts where he has to do all these promotions. Of course, it is unfortunate that that the woman died and her son is critical now. And this is not the first time. I was actually looking at different articles. Even in 2003, during a Chiranjeevi release of a movie, at that time, the ticket, Tagore Theatre somewhere, when they released the theatre, they opened the theatre gates for people to come and buy tickets, right? There was a stampede then and 2 people died. So this movie craze and people dying also is not new. The entire thing became political, and of course, this whole stage thing for the last few weeks. So going to the next topic, which is about public places, something which Rajeshwari talked about. Recently in Bangalore, at the Cubbon Park, a group called Cubbon Reads, which basically goes and reads books. They were detained. Some of them were detained and their books confiscated because the horticulture department said that it is a secret Santa exchange and so many people cannot come together to Cubbon Park without permission. This is a problem across cities in India, I feel. We have very few public spaces that people can access. And when they can access, there are all kinds of bizarre ad hoc rules where you can't touch each other. You can't bring, in Cubbon Park, they said you cannot bring dogs that bark. You cannot eat food at one time. You cannot hold hands. They try to bring that rule. So Vinay, you work a lot for access to public spaces, right? Is the problem becoming more acute in a city like Bengaluru?
The problem is definitely becoming more acute, because population has really grown, but the public spaces have not grown to that extent. So if you go to Lal Bagh, for example, in the morning, even if you go at like 6:30 on a weekend, it feels like majestic, right, on the walking tracks, because there's like that many people there. So there is a lot of people, and it's only a small subset of people who are actually coming to public spaces. But on the one side, that is there. On the other side, we've had too much state regulation of public spaces in the last few years, right? It's almost like it's the WhatsApp uncles who are deciding what has to happen in a park. Like we have parks in Bangalore. Somebody put it up on Twitter the other day which said you can't walk anti-clockwise.
What?
And you can't walk you have to walk only clockwise. And we've had rules like
But why are people walking anti-clockwise?
No. When you
Being
enter a
walking
park, you can
reverse.
turn. No. When you enter a park, you can turn left and go around, or you can turn
Oh.
right and go around. So they mean like turn left and like
Not
go.
that they're walking reverse.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not just about Cubbon Reads and what happened. Definitely, what happened with Cubbon Reads, it's wrong that the department came and confiscated when such a rule was not communicated, and whatever talk was fine and all that was there. That's like really high-handedness for somebody using a public space for something as as like reading or exchanging a book. But the problem is of overall public spaces in Bangalore. And if you look at parks, there have been several issues. One, parks have been getting closed. Right. So my mother goes for walking near a park near my house, and the last few days she's walking in the compound at home, because even though DK Shivakumar, who's the Bangalore district in charge minister, has ordered that the parks be open, the 2 parks near my house in Jayanagar 40 block, they're locked. They open at 4:35, and it's not convenient for her. And there are several people for whom this happens. Even now, if you go to parks in the city, if you go around 3:30, you'll see college students and others sitting on that compound edge. And that edge also, now they made it such that like there's only this much space. You can't even like sit properly. Yeah. So there is a large problem where there's increased state regulation of public spaces, which suits only a certain mindset, right? Of a certain middle class, like a certain majoritarian mindset, which says like couples can't hold hands and they'll do something, and like, they'll start making out and it makes us uncomfortable. You cannot eat in the park. But if you can't eat in a public space, what happens, right? And Cubbon Park, you must also know, is a place where street vendors have been banned. So on Sundays, they close traffic, correct? So if you go somewhere deep inside the park, like near the library, and if you feel hungry, you have to walk a long distance to come out.
And clockwise.
Yeah. You have to walk a long distance to come out. So they've actually banned street vendors. So I don't know if you remember, there's this old lady opposite MS building who was using that solar panel for like making jola. She was inside Cubbon Park near the library. But all of them have been thrown out, right? So there is a problem of over-regulation of public spaces, and the state is increasingly seeing, what can happen, what can't happen. So from Bahutwa, Karnataka, we've been organizing something called Kuta at Cubbon for the last 2 years, where the first Sunday of every month, it was an open call to people to come there to do, say, something like clay modeling on the theme of democracy, or like to do this Image Theatre, which is a silent theatre on a theme of fraternity. Or there was one kuta where like people got recipes and just exchanged it. But one particular kuta was around Gauri Lankesh's death anniversary to discuss her writings. Some particular writings to discuss it. Cubbon Park police came there. Cubbon Park police came there and said, you have to come back to the station. You have to do this in Freedom Park. And so both the Kota members said, why should you go to Freedom Park? We're discussing a book. And they said, no, you can't discuss it. We are afraid that somebody is going to come and do something to you. We are concerned for you. So therefore, you come to the police station now. And henceforth, if you're going to do something like this, you have to take our permission. So it's not just the horticulture department, but the Cubbon Park police also said that. And there were some other student groups who had organized some other discussion there in Cubbon Park. And for which, if there is a poster on social media, then Cubbon Park police springs up.
But in all other parks, you cannot sit, like a group cannot gather, right, for any such causes to discuss or anything. They'll come and stop you anyways. They'll come and ask
That's
you.
what I'm saying. There's like too much of state regulation which is happening in all parks. And it's a regulation of all kinds of things, right? And the problem you also see that, Bangalore has very few playgrounds.
Yeah.
The number of playgrounds in Bangalore are shrinking. Parks are increasing. But in the park, you cannot play. There is no playground, there is a park, but even if you do something simple like throwing a frisbee or something like that, they'll say you cannot do that. Cubbon Park also has a rule that you cannot climb trees. Now, you
cannot cycle, you cannot use skate, and then you cannot use big cameras. There are all kinds. That's why I don't go to Cubbon Park.
No, but it's a beautiful space. And for those of us who grew up in Bangalore, we have such fond memories, right? And it was a hub I love the dog park there. I was almost a stalker. I used to just go and stalk the dogs because they were so adorable. The skating culture.
That's why
in
they
Cubbon
shut
Park.
that dog park for some time. Because you're stalking the dogs.
That's not on me. But the skating culture there was so beautiful, and it did not hamper anybody. They would pick a lane, they would stick to that lane. It's not like people would get injured or anything like that. But I think primarily there are three problems. One is the lack of space in itself. Vinay can come in on this, but I read somewhere that Bangalore has about 1,200, 1,300 parks in the BBMP limits compared to Delhi's 14,000 parks. It seems a little too drastic to me, but you can come in on the numbers. One is the lack of space itself. Second is the surveillance in these spaces, right? Like you said, people get, in the afternoon, the reason they close is the people living around the park don't like that students come and hang out there. They loiter there, they make out, and they don't want to see that in front of their house. Close your house doors. I'm sorry. I mean, where
Poor
do you
students, they are the brunt of everybody's
Where do
anger.
you go? Where do you go to make out? Coastal cities have beach. Even there,
Pooja has been stalking dogs. Then she's talking about making out in parks. What is the third problem?
I'm saying, this culture of oppression manifests itself in so many ways, right?
Correct.
The third part I want you to come in on is the hostile architecture that we see. Putting spikes, metal spikes, like you mentioned, that curb sort of a thing where you can't sit. So it's like saying that you have to buy your way into a public space. If you want to go to a mall and sit there, you have to pay. If you're poor, you don't have access to public
But
spaces.
Vinay, are there rules that allow the administration to actually do all this kind of things? What are the loopholes that they're using of the law?
So there are 2-3 things. One is in terms of what you said, the architecture. Yeah, if you look at Cubbon Park, if you enter Cubbon Park from near Corporation Circle now, towards the library, you'll see that both sides they put a fence. So you can't enter the park. You have to just keep walking on the road till the library. Like only somewhere in between there's a small opening. It's ridiculous as to why the park has to be fenced like that. And two, in terms of the regulation that you're talking about, see, the law around parks is the Karnataka Parks, Playfields and Open Spaces Act. This is the law which governs parks and playgrounds and the other open spaces. And one of the restrictions is that you cannot put construction in a park which is not for park activities. Like it's okay to put a toilet in Cubbon Park because people who come there, but you cannot say build anything else which is not really suited to a park there. These rules which the horticulture department is quoting is what they told both members also when they went to ask what is this regulation that is there. And these rules, they seem to have made it up on their own. Now, one problem that we're facing is Cubbon Park is under the horticulture department. Horticulture department is good at horticulture, but Cubbon Park is also public space now, right? So should horticulture department be the one which is like looking at parks? Because that is not their experience of public spaces, how to govern public space. A deputy director of horticulture knows how to maintain a botanical garden, how to do that, but they might not know how to regulate public space. So even this rule that they're saying more than 20 you cannot gather, or if it's more than 20, you need permission. Like, how do you decide a number? Who decides the number?
And it's
right?
also their morality, I think. Like,
Yeah,
you
it's
can't hold
definitely-
hands, is some horticulture department deciding.
Exactly. So I feel like the urban local body is BBMP. These are all spaces within BBMP. On the one hand, it should be BBMP which is doing regulation. Second thing is, there's been no discussion like who framed these rules, who communicated these rules. See, parks are commons, and commons, whether it's parks, beaches, or like grazing land, Gomala, etc. Commons have to be used by everybody, and commons should not have entry barriers. And how do you use the commons in such a way that the commons can be maintained? It should be a broad democratic decision. But here we don't see democratic decision making. In every place, there are some people who hold power. In the neighborhood parks, it's the resident welfare associations. In Kormangla, I remember going to a park when the RWA person told me to leave at 7:30. He said, I have to lock up. He had the key. BBMP didn't have the key. I don't know why it had to be closed at 7:30, right? And near your office, this park on the other side,
which is called Ganja Park.
Yes, I do.
No, not Ganja Park. The traffic park.
Okay.
The traffic park was handed over to that builder, Vaswani. So they close it at 6. So there Vaswani is holding power. And in certain parks is the Walkers Association. So why should Cubbon Park Walkers Association have so much power? Is walking the only thing to be done in a park? Of course, Walkers Association has also done some good things, but it's almost like, in every park, there are certain people or certain structures which are wielding a lot of power, which is like not at all democratic. And that is a broader conversation we need to have. We need to have people of all classes. Like, how did they decide that street vendors should not be inside? Street vendors, it's their livelihood, but they also serve people in the park like me. I would have been very happy to just eat some peanuts. It's not like they were selling something dangerous or like people are littering. There's enough dustbins over there, right? So who's taking these decisions? It's horticulture department. But why is horticulture department trying to regulate a public space without any kind of discussion? And that's the broad discussion we need to have.
Vinay, I'll just go to Hyderabad and Pune people, because what is the situation there, Sowmya? You have been living in Pune for quite many years now. So are there enough spaces, commons as we call it there?
We do have parks, but more than that, I would say the hills are where people go to when they really need to, relax, or they don't want to go to a mall or a theater or a coffee space, coffee place. Because in any metro city today, if you want to hang out with friends or go somewhere with your family, these are the only options that we have. Go to a mall, go to a restaurant, or go and watch a film. In Pune, luckily, we do have the hills, which are accessible to the public. We have different entry gates in different areas. And there, the rules are not too bad. Some gates do have rules like you can't take your pet dogs. But then the same hill will have another entry gate which allows pet dogs. So if you walk up the hill, you will see pet dogs there, but you can't take it through this gate. So there are some absurd and inconsistent rules like this. But there is an avenue for people to have access to some kind of public space. And this obviously is open to all kinds of people. It's not only the privileged who have access to these spaces.
Rajeshwari, Hyderabad also, there have been some controversies, right? Where suddenly they'll try to bring a rule, like Osmania University at one time. Like you were saying, Pooja, the joggers park, they tried to introduce a rule where you had to pay money.
They had a monthly pass of 200 rupees, which is not very high, but that's it. Why should anybody have to pay for that? Yeah.
But Hyderabad, do you have a lot of commons, and are there these absurd rules there also?
First of all, Hyderabad doesn't have too many parks. And whichever park, like a botanical garden, for example, there are some places which have been taken over by construction, unfortunately, through some loopholes. And so there, if I can think of from the top of my head, I don't have so many parks to talk about. Maybe there is an NTR garden where families do go in the evenings, which is on the Necklace Road. Then there is the oldest Sanjivaya Park, Indira Park, where people walk, which is definitely the worst maintained park in Hyderabad. And then perhaps the KBR. The KBR is the only park because it's in Jubilee Hills. A lot of celebrities go there, a lot of ministers go there to walk. So that is the only well-maintained park that I've seen so far. So otherwise, I think parks in Hyderabad have been, there are very less number of parks, there are very less number of places that people can safely go to for walking or for anything for that matter, or meeting or talking or even holding hands is the last thing. Because I think like in every city, the police come cracking down. So even to go relax, maybe read a book or anything, there's no park in Hyderabad.
Sometimes I wonder if cops just like were born as cops, right? They were not young people who went to parks. They're always there telling people to get up, move. Didn't you go to parks when you were young? No, Pooja, I also want to just bring about another angle in this whole Bangalore thing, where it is not just about a Cubbon Park, right? That is, of course, commons and place where you can gather, even to protest. In Bengaluru, you can only protest in Freedom Park. If you are a farmer living in the outskirts of Bengaluru and you want to protest there, you cannot. You have to come all the way to Freedom Park and get permission, right? Which is also ridiculous.
Yeah, so we formed this coalition, the Horata the Hakigagi Janandolana. Since the last 1 year, we've been fighting for this, for the right to protest, right? All this started because the Anganwadi workers, they had a rally 2.5 years ago demanding for higher wages because they were being paid so little. Then a judge of the High Court writes a letter to the then Chief Justice saying that, this rally impacted traffic and, there should be some restrictions on protests and rallies. Then the High Court converts it into a suo motu petition. And while hearing that petition, the High Court passes an interim order saying no rallies, absolutely, and protests should happen only in Freedom Park. As this case is being heard with this interim order in force, the then Bangalore Commissioner in January 2022 brings in a new regulation under the Karnataka Police Act. He brings in a new regulation which says protests can happen only in Freedom Park. Rallies are allowed, but protests can happen only in Freedom Park. If there is a need to protest elsewhere, only the commissioner can approve it. So even though the police have bought this regulation, the police themselves only keep quoting the High Court order still and say that because of the High Court order, you cannot protest anywhere except Freedom Park. They've not allowed the Pride March. They've not allowed May Day rally. They didn't allow farmers to have rally. And there have been like FIRs against people for protesting in places other than Freedom Park, right? And that's absolutely and see the thing about this Freedom Park rule is not just about protests. Like I said, it's brought in a certain mentality to Bangalore police, which is why when we're sitting in Cubbon Park and discussing about a book, they're saying go to Freedom Park. Why did you think like that, right? This is nothing. This is not a protest. This is not anything. We are just 7 people sitting and discussing a book. How can you tell us go to Freedom Park? Because the police has decided anything that they feel is inconvenient. You have to go to Freedom Park and do that.
Ironically, it's called Freedom Park.
There was a jail there before, so they're still looking at it as the central
so
jail.
dissent is jailed. And, so we met the chief minister and
But he promised to revoke this.
He promised to revoke it. He said he'll speak to the AG. We met the chief minister twice. We met the additional chief secretary home. We met the police commissioner. But, they keep talking only about traffic. Right. But if you sit on the steps of town hall, no traffic is impacted. And when it comes to traffic, Bangalore in 2015 had 11.3 lakh cars. In 2024, there are 23 lakh cars. That is not spoken about traffic. But if 20 people stand at Mysore Bank Circle on the pavement, that becomes a problem for you. Right. And so where is the space for expression? Right. The Constitution says you have the right to freedom of assembly. You have the right to peacefully gather at a place. You have the right to freedom of speech and expression. But like everything is being jailed. Right. Dissent is being jailed in Freedom Park. And a party which swears by the Constitution, which said the BJP is trying to tear away the Constitution. We're there to save it. It's been 1.5 years since they came to power, but they're not lifting this rule. Even though it has been brought to their notice umpteen number of times. In fact, DK Shivkumar and Siddaramaiah had an FIR because they protested in a place other than Freedom Park. They went to Supreme Court to get it quashed.
No, also the issue is the very definition and the purpose of a protest is to draw attention to an issue. Yes. Because you're not getting it otherwise. Yes. You also want to take the public along with you. So when you're even in Freedom Park, they've put up these huge walls. So you cannot, even if you're driving by, you can't actually stop and see what the protest is about. How many people will actually park and go and see why Anganwadi workers are protesting? So it defeats the purpose of having a public protest, number one. Number two is, they still allow rallies for political parties. Does that not disrupt traffic? I got caught so many times during Lok Sabha elections. That is allowed. Why is that rule not applicable there?
Not just rallies, but also like religious processions, right? Like they block roads for like religious processions. And
all the time.
All the time they block roads for religious processions and like that is allowed. The streets are again commons, right? The streets are also commons, but they feel the streets have only one purpose and that is for traffic to move. Streets are multi-purpose. Streets are for trees. Streets are for people to walk. Streets are for public displays of dissent. Streets are for dialogue, right? A protest is nothing but a form of dialogue. It's only when you do a protest that somebody will come to listen to you. Or like Pooja, you were saying that somebody who's passing by will come and say, we've had protests at Mysore Bank and earlier at MG Road when we used to do it, where passerbys have come and asked, what is this about? And they've actually come to know about it. Then they've joined or like, there has been a discussion, there has been a debate. But that's a dialogue. A protest is a form of dialogue. But this whole thing is happening because cities in India, it's not just Bangalore, right? Even Hyderabad. In Hyderabad, where they allowed Allu Arjun to go from that metro station to the theatre, protests are not allowed. Indian cities are moving towards a particular vision of a world-class city, which is sanitized, where there's only certain forms of expression which can be allowed in public and certain kinds of activities, right? Now, there is a lot of outrage about Cubbon Park. It's good there's the outrage. But when the street vendors were evicted from Church Street, they were harassed much more than the people who had come to read the books, right? Their carts were taken away. Their carts are thrown in Mayor Hall. If you go to Mayor Hall now, to the Joint Commissioner East's office, and if you go to that garden, the peanut sellers' carts are just thrown ulta there, right? The corn stands are just like put there, right? They were not given a notice. They were not allowed to say anything, and they're still not being allowed. So Bangalore is going towards a sanitized version of a public space where it's okay to have a big car and park it on the road for free. It's okay to have a big car and keep driving it and get the roads jammed. But God forbid you allow any form of dissent. God forbid you allow street vendors to vend, or you allow a May Day rally, right?
The point of the street vendors, right? One of the things I've heard a lot of these RWAs mention is that they want the parks closed in the afternoon because street vendors who are tired come and sleep on the park bench, and they have a problem with that even. Just imagine the level of cruelty.
Yeah, absolutely.
But on just the last point on the legal part of how public spaces are to be made available, at least in BBMP and BDA, limits, 10% should be allotted for parks. Another additional 15% for civic amenities, right? Civic amenities can be your playground because you said you can't play in the park, right? The problem is these CA sites, civic amenity sites, are given to clubs. Each area now has a club. Now the membership of that club is very high. Obviously, very few people can go. What they do is that they give that to those people. So the rest of the people who are poor, who don't have access, don't have a public space in that area. That's why increasingly outer parts of Bengaluru don't have any kind of public space at all.
So before we wrap up, I just have two quick thoughts. And Sowmya and Rajeshwari, if you want to have any concluding remarks on this, do jump in. For me, two things which stand out. One is that judges traveling on roads is a very dangerous thing. Look at what happened in Bengaluru. Now we can only protest in Freedom Park. In Chennai, there was a judge who went on the road and saw all those fish stalls and they were removed, right? So judges traveling on roads, dangerous. The second is the media. I've always had this problem with particularly a newspaper, which is there across all cities and a lot of others also. They have this very middle class attitude that street vendors should not be there. So that newspaper will run campaign after campaign after campaign about how to remove street vendors. And then finally, for example, Church Street street vendors are removed. They will have this triumphant headline, street vendors finally removed. So I feel that the administration has also cultivated the media to propagate this message that street vendors should not be there, that they are a nuisance, they are a hindrance and they should be removed. And that is entrenched in people's minds now. So I think the media also has played a role in this. Sowmya, Rajeshwari, any final thoughts, Sowmya?
Yes, I agree with you. So when we say public, we tend to think that only we have rights. We meaning a section of the privileged people, that only we have rights and only we should have access to these spaces. And then we think that these spaces should be clean and hygienic, and we assume that if the others come inside, then it will automatically spoil the atmosphere. It will, create some kind of a nuisance. So as Pooja was mentioning, that the RWA has a problem with people sleeping in the park, people who are tired after a long day's work. They see that as a nuisance because of this us and them narrative. So I feel that is very unfortunate, and the media should not play along with something like this.
When you said media, before the Church Street eviction happened, around a month before that, there was an article in a particular newspaper which said Church Street vendors are the cause for garbage and a lot of problems in Church Street. When I saw that article, I was like, okay, there is an eviction impending because they're trying to build.
No, I have been wanting to do an investigation on this particular newspaper for years now, just tracking how they have, and this is not a Bengaluru phenomenon, Vinay. I have tracked that newspaper in different cities. The moment they write about this particular road is not good, that road contract is given to someone, right? They will say that this fish stall should not come up, vendors should not be there. Immediate demolition. So there is a clear pattern of how that newspaper is behaving across cities. For all the mystery to the people watching, listening, etc. Hopefully, we will do an investigation someday and then you will realize who we are talking
But it's
about.
a bit of a no-brainer. We're not saying it for legal reasons, but if you know, you know.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll wrap up the show and we'll quickly go to the recommendations. Rajeshwari, what is your recommendation for people? A book, movie, whatever it is.
Book. I think I would strongly suggest William Dalrymple's The Silk Road, where he talks about India extensively, and I think we need. It will give a lot of insight into how significant India was on the Silk Road, which is not talked about. In fact, a recent British Museum exhibition also did not have India that figure, though they had the artifacts from Rajasthan and other places. They did not mention India on the Silk Route exhibition. And he was also critical about it. I think that book is very important, and I wonder why our national government has not looked into the book. Perhaps because William Dalrymple signifies, another thought process altogether. But this book is completely Indian. It talks about how India has been great all along.
Sowmya, what is your recommendation for the week?
I just watched Joy, The Birth of IVF on Netflix. It's a really interesting film that's set in the 60s and the 70s. And it talks about the team that actually brought IVF technology into the world, and it also focuses on the women, who are involved in the clinical trials. It's a really beautifully well-made film.
Please note that both the reviewers have not given Pushpa 2 as their recommendation of the week. Yeah. Okay, Vinay.
So, because we are talking about parks and public spaces, a book to recommend is Olivia Lang's The Lonely City, because the way it explores loneliness and the city, it's really beautiful, and it helps you think about the city in different ways. And linked to that is, of course, Avial, All We Imagine as Light, which is the other.
What did you call it?
Avial.
All We Imagine is
as light. That's
Avial.
how it's being referred to on Twitter.
I thought
Avial.
you're recommending the food, Avial.
That also, but because that also explores loneliness and the city, right? So in Avial, you see that they don't have space to be intimate, right? Like you can't have it in your house. There's no public space. So I think linked to this Cubbon Park thing, these two things.
Did you come up with this acronym? Or
No.
other people
It was already
this?
there. There are a lot of people using it.
Sorry, but that is my persistent
Dhanya is
doubt.
so amused. Also, he's not had lunch, so he's quite hungry.
He's thinking of Avial.
He's thinking of
Just
Avial.
the last thing I want to say is, our only statesman who's spoken about happiness is in Baba Saheb Ambedkar's States and Minorities. In his preamble to the Constitution, he actually spoke of the right to happiness. Right? It's something which I think is very important, but nobody speaks about it when you speak about the Constitution. So when you're talking about public spaces and city, and I think happiness is important. So I'd recommend the viewers to also read Baba Saheb Ambedkar's States and Minorities.
I'm going to recommend something very light. It's the holiday season, something fun. On Netflix, there's a limited series called Man on the Inside.
It's
loved
beautiful.
It. It's
so
beautiful.
warm.
It has such a profound message, but it's delivered in such a fun way. So go watch it.
I'm just wondering, where does Pooja get all the time to watch all this? Because every week she's giving one series after the other. Pooja.
But I'm not slacking on work, so you can't pull me up.
So my recommendation is, I want people to read the New York Times articles on this whole Blake Lively and Baldoni. I mean, other than the fact that a PR system was used to discredit Blake Lively, what really caught my attention is the Baldoni, the woke male, that whole thing that he built around himself, the reputation, and then how he then apparently used a PR machinery to bring down Blake Lively. But what I found strange is New York Times did not delve too much into the sexual harassment or the contract that she tried to sign. So I'm also looking for more articles on that. With that note, we come to an end of South Central. This is a podcast that we have been wanting to begin for many, many years now. I have been very lazy and lethargic about it. Finally, this year I was told now or never. So we started the podcast. We are just a few episodes into it. We are learning how to do the podcast. So do write to us at southcentral@thenewsminute.com. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. Last week we got a lot of love and hate emails. Keep them coming. And we'll soon start reading out some of those emails too. And next month, we'll have one subscriber join us here in the studio. So keep watching, keep reading. And don't forget, end of the year, as you give gifts to family members, also do not forget independent media organizations like the News Minute. Take a subscription, support our journalism. Have a good 2025.